I really love the giallo genre. Italian thrillers, I can never get enough of them, and in this video I'm talking about Luigi Bazzoni's thriller The Fifth Chord, Giornata Nera per l'Ariete. The reason I picked The Fifth Chord is because I have an odd feeling about this film. I think it has a lot of elements which would easily have resulted in a mind-blowing masterpiece. I think some of the aspects of The Fifth Chord are just insanely good, but somehow I never could quite... This movie just somehow doesn't quite sit 100% comfortably with me, despite all the lavish production values and great stylish moments there. It's a movie that I would love to love 100%, but I don't. I like the lead actor, Franco Nero. I like the idea of them adapting from an actual genuine murder mystery rather than trying to write their own material. I think it's fairly infrequently that the screenwriters in that time for those European co-productions, those Italian-Spanish thrillers, Italian-French thrillers, Italian-German thrillers, they would usually easily borrow, steal, adapt ideas from various sources, but rarely would the original source be credited. So a great example is the Dario Argento's Bird with the Crystal Plumage, based on The Screaming Mimi by Frederick Brown, an excellent American murder mystery, which receives no credit in the film. However, a lot of its ideas even went on to be adapted into the following Dario Argento movies, into Cat o' Nine Tails and Four Flies on Grey Velvet. So I brought up Bird with Crystal Plumage, and there are plenty of parallels between Dario Argento's debut and Luigi Bazzoni's film. They only came out something like a year apart, I believe, so very much contemporary films. Both movies, let's start with very obvious parallels, both being thrillers, murder mysteries with a black-gloved killer, and international cast of characters, and of course Vittorio Storaro taking care of the visuals, and Ennio Morricone delivering the score. I mean, those are huge similarities. And not to forget Rome being the chief setting of both films. This isn't a Dario Argento video, we'll try and stick with Bazzoni. I've only seen 3 of his movies. I am blown away by his ability to conjure up atmosphere out of quite bleak locations. Now this is something good about The Fifth Chord, is how it manages to make bleakness look stylish, not attractive, but somehow cinematic, and that's a great gift. I think a lot of more recent films really fail in that regard, maybe also because of digital cinematography. Cinematography in this film, The Fifth Chord, is for the most part astonishingly good. Specifically, light is excellent. There is great set design and how shots are framed. I'm not so sure about some of the handheld shots though, because there are some odd camera tilts, and handheld camera tends to be absurdly wobbly in some of the shots, making this movie look cheaper than it probably was. You know, so that's just a minor little thing which always, every time I watch it, always kind of jumps at me. I'm thinking, does it have to be so shaky? But never mind. On the whole, cinematography is great, light is great, but the guy who's actually maneuvering the camera wasn't always brilliant, if you see what I mean. A little roughness is there, but for a film of its vintage, maybe I'm being too picky here. My major stumbling block with The Fifth Chord is, I guess, the main character. I love Franco Nero, and I think he's pretty good at playing people with a drinking problem. Like he's played a magnificent kind of raving alcoholic in a Pasquale Festa Campanile film with David Hess, Hitchhike. And once again here in The Fifth Chord, well actually The Fifth Chord was probably, technically came earlier. In this movie, once again, Franco Nero plays a hard-drinking character, mustached, a journalist, always wearing this kind of trench coat. His character is our focus. We kind of explore this story for the most part through his eyes, so there is a certain demand for association with the character. And even though I like Franco Nero, I like the idea of a journalist being the protagonist of a murder mystery. But this guy, the guy he plays, is a jerk. And some of his dialogue is horrible, and basically throughout the movie he pesters his, I'm not even sure if she's his ex-wife or just the mother of his child. So he just, the first thing he does in the movie is that he sits there drunk at the bar while all the main red herrings are being paraded during this stylish, beautiful opening credits sequence. And then the next thing you know is the mother of his child, or his ex-partner, she gets out the, you know, where they were partying, and then she gets in her car, and guess what? Andrea Bild, the main character, is sitting there in her car, just like that. I mean, that's, I know a lot of ladies probably wouldn't mind if they were to find a young Franco Nero sitting in their car just like that as a New Year's Eve present, surprise. But I think, you know, generally, you know, following a character who's a bit of a creep, I find that problematic unless we're watching a really sleazy movie. You know, if we're going, you know, there are all sorts of gialli out there. Some of them are more on the Le Diabolique side, like the Lenzi thrillers, you know, where it's all about sort of that final little twist, who's been fooling who. And then there are gialli who are more about suspense a la Hitchcock, which Dario Argento does that so well. And then there are gialli which are really completely empty but pile on the sleaze and nudity. You know, we could start with something like French Sex Murders and go on via Slasher as a Sex Maniac all the way to Giallo Venezia. Those kind of movies which are more about, you know, long erotic scenes rather than any mystery. And then there are gialli where you actually try and solve the mystery, where there is quite a bit of investigation going on. Again, I could bring up the first two of Argento's animal thrillers, which are really good at showing us the protagonist's mode of thinking, interviewing different witnesses and coming closer and closer to the revelation. But quite early in his career, Dario Argento, already with his third movie, Four Flies on Black Grey Velvet, he's already visibly been getting sick of doing the traditional whodunit routine, and he started jumping around more into the style and extended set pieces. So there is that. And then there are also gialli which are really bubbly, breezy and superficial, and, you know, like Death Walks in High Heels, Death Walks at Midnight, those kind of, you know, Death Carries a Cane, where it's a bit of everything but definitely not to be taken seriously. And there are also some grim movies where, I mean, these are not subgenres, this is just my personal kind of categorizing, I guess. Like Fulci's excellent Don't Torture a Duckling. It's so magnificently orchestrated with excellent set pieces, a great twist. It's all put together magnificently, but the subject matter and the way it's presented is so damn downbeat and just a bit depressing that I guess this movie would have been a lot more respected and popular had it been slightly less sad. And The Fifth Chord is another giallo which is very stylish, and yes, it's hugely derivative of the Dario Argento debut movie, but it has plenty of its own style and originality there. It's interestingly, The Fifth Chord does not glamorize violence. You see, especially the later Dario Argento movies, which are less of murder mysteries and more of set pieces, you know, operatic kind of over-the-topness movies. You could see that some of the violence was getting more and more stylized, so less and less realism and less pain, but more and more just beautiful gore, you know, splashes on the wall or slow motion bullets, things like that. Whereas here, Bazzoni, what he does is there are murders, 5, 6 murders, I'm not sure. In the book, I think the killer intended to murder 8 people. I haven't been counting in the movie. I think the glove just has 5 fingers, so it's 5 or 6 people die in the film. Anyway, the kills, while they're stylish, first of all, they're predictable. You immediately see kind of what's coming, so there is no big surprise there. Second, there is no huge attempt made at making them suspenseful. This is where Dario Argento totally wins, unsurprisingly, I suppose. Also, what's interesting is Sony seems to focus a bit more on the characters' misery and suffering, and a lot of the characters have some form of physical ailment. And in the novel, in the source novel, the killer actually says, well, the book and the movie start the same way, with the killer's kind of diary. In the movie, it's on tape, it's an audio tape, it's this distorted voice, and basically in the novel he says, like right on the first page, he says, I'm gonna kill this many people and I have a plan, I'm not crazy, I have a motive. And most of these people are suffering, they're unhappy in their daily lives, so this murder will, in a way, not salvation, but this will be their way out of their misery. And in The Fifth Chord, while I'm not sure if the killer says the same thing in the movie, there is that theme of many characters ailing, and especially the first character, Rosella Falk's character, who's this bedridden lady on crutches. She has this quite odd relationship with her husband, played by Renato Romano, who's a favorite supporting character of mine, who's been in many a thriller, including Seven Bloodstained Orchids and, of course, Burn with the Crystal Plumage. So this character, Rosella Falk's character, she's her death scene is anything but enjoyable to watch. Yes, it's stylish, but I mean, just it's more about her being lonely and not being able to look after herself, and then then also the killer comes and takes care of her. This is really quite, I mean, so this is the interesting thing about The Fifth Chord, is that violence is ugly, violence is hideous. There is no attempt made at sweetening it up, glamorizing it in any way, or making it palatable. No, so this is, I think, what sets The Fifth Chord apart from a lot of those thrillers which were which were making violence look a bit more fun, or somehow, more comic bookish, for example, where it's more the colors that are foregrounded, but not the painful impact of it. But there are many Dario Argento connections throughout The Fifth Chord. For example, the house where the main character, Andrea Bild, comes to visit his ex-partner and her kid, is the same house we've seen in The Four Flies on Grey Velvet, which was made around the same time. I believe the same house was also used by Antonioni in his film Eclipse. So there is that connection. The Fifth Chord was a co-production with Germany, so a couple of supporting roles are taken over by German actors. Specifically, there is the actor famous for Stone, what was it, Mill of the Stone Women, and a number of German Dr. Mabuse films from the 60s. Wolfgang Preiss, I think he was also in The Bloodstained Butterfly. He has a limited part as this token police commissioner who happily furnishes Franco Nero's journalist with all the necessary data without any significant resistance, just the way we've seen it in Cat O' Nine Tails, where the relationship between the policeman and the journalist was also quite an easygoing one, which is, it's only made for our viewers' convenience, so that we so the story doesn't stumble too much with them bickering. The sooner our protagonist gets another bit of information, the sooner we move on to another revelation, another person is going to end up dead. Going back to my quibbles about The Fifth Chord, since it's an early 1970s film and it's adapted from an even earlier novel, so there is difficulty from today's perspective looking at this movie without criticizing it. You have to realize it's an artifact of its time. It was not meant to be dug up and put under microscope in the 21st century. It was just a commercial movie made to cash in on the Giallo craze. Everybody make a bit of money and move on. But still, there is definitely a major sexist streak in The Fifth Chord. The way there is that bizarre love scene. Love scenes in Giallo films are a theme in itself. It's like there is that completely static one in Cat O' Nine Tails. In The Fifth Chord, there is like a bed scene between Franco Nero and his current girlfriend, and they're just running around completely silly around the flat and pillow fight, and it's all a bit overdone. And also considering that this journalist, this hard drinking journalist has just called her like a whore and a liar and beat her basically. It's really odd that she kind of welcomes him back into her arms, because there is no indication that she's in any way a masochist who derives any kind of pleasure from that sort of treatment. So it's basically, from today's perspective, it looks less and less acceptable. Now, I've seen The Fifth Chord a number of times over the years. I used to have the crappy Spanish DVD, which had that quite blurry image and had muddy brown sort of hue to the picture. And rewatching the movie recently in the restored version, I was able to appreciate it all the more. As to the film's visuals, there is no harmony in that film. There are patterns, there are certain, like, you know, those spiral forms and those slats throughout the film, and, like, you know, the blinds and things like that. But I still find there is a certain aesthetic clash there, which was not probably intentional. Like, some scenes seem to jar with others. The film doesn't have a uniform look. Maybe they weren't going for a uniform look, but there is something slightly off balance about this film, which I can't quite put my finger on. The interesting thing about The Fifth Chord story is that the investigation develops over a number of months. So we begin on 31st of December. There is that New Year's Eve party. And then it's like March, so kills don't happen within a week. It's not a compressed narrative like some of, like, I think Bird with Crystal Plumage happens within like 3 to 5 days. Some of them are really tense and compressed, whereas this one, the investigation goes on and on. There isn't really much of police involvement shown in The Fifth Chord. It's more about Franco Nero trying to, you know, get to the truth, which is obviously a bitter truth. I'm still warming up to The Fifth Chord. There was plenty there to savor. The international cast, including some, you know, kind of slumming former Hollywood actors such as Edmund Purdom. Then there is the full-on star, international star, Franco Nero, who was at his peak in the 70s, throughout the 70s. Then there are lots of... there is the Fellini star, Rossella Falk, who's worked with Argento, with Robert Aldrich. There is one of my favorite supporting actors I already mentioned. There is Renato Romano, and there is also Guido Alberti, who has an excellent, interesting part as this kind of obese, decaying, asthmatic fellow journalist or some kind of editor at this news agency where Franco Nero works. So the urban environment, the way it's portrayed by Bazzoni, that's priceless. And also his choice to portray big city life as a miserable one is actually rings very true with, I think, with contemporary audiences. And, you know, there is no attempt to over glamorize stuff in that film, including murders. I'm not sure which company gave them all the sunglasses, because throughout the film the characters, they all wear quite interesting and unusual spectacles, including Franco Nero keeps... I'll have to check the credits. Maybe it even says who supplied the eyewear for this movie, because there is obviously been some kind of product placement going on there. The Fifth Chord is immensely stylish. The central mystery is not that easy to guess unless you are quite familiar with the genre, quite obsessive about the genre, I would say. It's an honest approach in that they credit the book they adapted from, which is commendable. The movie isn't a very happy one. Every character has some kind of a problem, starting with the main protagonist, who is basically a jerk. But still, somehow I keep coming back to The Fifth Chord. There is something there. I think Bazzoni is an interesting director, even though he's not as highly regarded as some of his peers. He hasn't been as prolific in the thriller genre. He nevertheless has a great eye for the visuals and can put together a more than competent package. And not to forget Ennio Morricone's score. I think that's a very strong asset. The Fifth Chord has an excellent score. I particularly enjoy the opening credits tune, which is, I don't know, something about it, just it's an earworm. So I really enjoyed revisiting The Fifth Chord. Thanks a lot for watching my review.